Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to another week of devotions. We're going to be in Exodus 9 and 10 today, and my name is Beau, hence it is the Devo with Beau. And 9 and 10, if you've never gone through the book of Exodus, it's pretty cool. Just so you know, like where I first heard of the book of Exodus was actually from an album cover by Bob Marley. So when I used to listen to a lot of Bob Marley growing up in Southern California, and I remember one of the songs by Bob Marley that I really, really liked was on that album called Exodus. And I just never grew up around the Bible, so I didn't know what that meant or what the narrative was, what kind of the story, the backstory was, and a lot of people don't know what it is, don't know what it's about. Maybe they've heard bits and pieces of it through pop culture, but they've never actually gone through the Bible. So on the morning devotions, I always like to just go through the Bible. I know it's not super hard, and if you just open it up and just go through it, you'll get through the entire Bible. And most of your questions on God and on what's going on in our world and what goes on in you will be answered as you read through the Bible. And it's a kind of a mind blower how it makes a ton of sense. But if you're raised like me, you're raised really against it. You're against, I was raised very against the idea of God or gods or Bible or this kind of thing. And so you can't just assume everybody knows the Bible. A lot of people who go to church don't even read the entire Bible. And so that's what we're doing on these streams. And if you so want to go through the Bible and you need just a little bit of help, just go online, just go on. I'm on every morning from Monday to Friday at 9 a.m. And you can just go live with me and we'll just walk through it together. So I make some comments on it, but I love to just, make sure I just read through it too. It's super cool. Okay, so let's get into it. It says, "Now go back to Pharaoh, the Lord commanded Moses." And it says, "Tell him this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews says, let my people go so they can worship me. If you continue to hold them and refuse to let them go, the hand of the Lord will strike all your livestock, your horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, and goats with a deadly plague. But the Lord will again make a distinction between the livestock of the Israelites and that of the Egyptians. Not a single one of Israel's animals will die. The Lord has already set the time for the plague to begin. He has declared what he will strike, and he will strike the land tomorrow." And so this is a continuation of these plagues that are going to be set against Pharaoh. And yet Pharaoh keeps hardening his heart and being stubborn, and just like us, just super stubborn people. We are stubborn to the core. Like if we even had a book that talked about God and the God of the universe and the real and true and living God, we would not want to read it that much. We'd rather do other things. That's how stubborn we are. We would rather click a video about Nephilim and big giants and how cool the big giants are and all the AI giants. And that's what we're into. And it's sad, right? You look at all the videos out there, and it's just a reflection of us. It's just a reflection of our stubbornness as human beings. We are literally about the business of everything but what really matters. And man, is that not a plague that is upon us and that we just cannot see? We are so hard in the heart. And here, when you kind of look at Pharaoh and you see, God, man, Pharaoh, why don't you just let him go in the wilderness and let him go worship God? We find that, we ourselves are a lot like Pharaoh in many ways as just a human race, a human species, if you will. just very, even though the plague is right there in front of us, we're stubborn. You know, even if the true and living God were to show up on the scene, we wouldn't want him. We would reject. That's how fallen we've become. We are. And so it says, and the Lord did just as he has said. The next morning, all the livestock of the Egyptians died, but the Israelites didn't lose a single animal. The Pharaoh sent his officials to investigate, and they discovered that the Israelites had not lost a single animal. Hey, could you go check and see if those animals are dead over in Israel land, the land of Goshen, where the Hebrew people are living? And I'm sure there was all these really interesting conspiracies even back then about why the animals are alive with the Hebrews, those Jewish people, those Hebrew folk, there's something interesting about them. I'm sure it's the propaganda of the Egyptian world. Just like today, they had their, Candace Owenses, they had their Tucker Carlsons, they had their versions of everything that we have. And it just was the same rhetoric. Over and over. It's been over and over and over and over again. And you know what? Every generation just can't seem to learn. We just keep falling into the same patterns over and over and over. It is grossly sad. That's what it is. It's super sad to see just what we've become. And so it says Pharaoh sent, but even so, Pharaoh's heart remained stubborn, and he still refused to let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, and it's interesting, right? Remember the old words to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? What was the covenant promise? Hey man, cursed are those who curse you. Right? And blessed are those who bless you, man. It's going to be for your descendants too. If people are against your descendants, man, I'm coming against them. This is how it's working. And it says, then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take handfuls of soot from a brick kiln, and have Moses toss it into the air while Pharaoh watches. The ashes will spread like fine dust over the whole land of Egypt, causing faster boils to break out on the people and animals throughout the land. So they took some of the brick kiln and went and stood before the Pharaoh. And as Pharaoh watched, Moses threw up the soot in the air, and boils broke on the people and animals alike, and even the magicians were unable to stand before Moses because the boils had broken out on them and all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, just as the Lord had predicted to Moses. Pharaoh refused to listen. So we see Pharaoh, his heart being stubborn, he hardening his heart, being stubborn. And then there's this phrase that the Lord hardens Pharaoh's heart. God gives Pharaoh over to himself. You want to go that direction? There you go. That might be the scariest idea. I think one of them in the Bible is the idea that God will let you go do what you want to do. You want to harden your heart, you go harden your heart. And, is today a day that I'm going to go harden my heart? Is my heart going to be hard? Am I going to be, hard against people? Am I going to be bitter? Am I going to be envious? Am I going to be greedy? Am I going to be angry? Am I going to be resentful? Am I going to be this way? Is my heart going to be hard today? Am I going to go, God, yeah, go for it. And then it gets to a place where God says, okay, your heart's hard. And almost like no turning back. The idea of God hardening your heart is a no turning back, meaning it ain't changing. That's the idea. Something greater than yourself has hardened your heart. It's a phrase that definitely shows that the heart is not going to change. It is that radical of a statement when it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. That's radical. If your heart is so stubborn, where the phrase God hardens your heart comes up, there ain't no change. There ain't going to be no change. And if God is against you, that is the most gnarliest thing ever. Now, this is something that scares us as human beings, no doubt. And therefore, I certainly went atheism route, because the last thing I wanted was an accountability with the true and living God, that I was actually maybe created by a being. Maybe everything was created by an intelligent being, and that we might be accountable to such a being. Because if I'm accountable, then what have I done? How have I acted? What is going to be my judgment before a creator? And those are thoughts that make us run. We run into the caves. We hide ourselves. So the term Pharaoh, hardened his heart, is a radical statement. Yeah, Pharaoh hardens his heart. Not good. But there's some hope there. But when it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart, you're at a place now where there ain't going to be a change. Your heart is hard, and it's hardened by God. Man, that's intense. God is going to show Moses something. And Moses, the reluctant one, the one who's fearful, the one who's been running his whole life, God has now got Moses right in the mix. And God's going to show himself faithful to even overpower a government that Moses, no doubt, thought could never be toppled. And isn't it like governments to think like, oh, I can never be toppled? The Egyptian Pharaoh, right? Who can topple him? Isn't he God on the planet? And Moses was raised in this culture. And so God is going to display his power to Moses in a very radical way to topple this Pharaoh. So then the Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh. Tell him this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews," notice it's always the God of the Hebrews, the God of the Hebrews, the God of the Hebrews. Hey, guess what? You love Jesus? The God of the Hebrews. This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews says, "Let my people go so they can worship me. If you don't, I will send more plagues upon you and your officials and your people. And then you will know that there is no one like me on the earth." No one like God. And it says, "But now I could have lifted my hand and struck you and your people with the plague to wipe you off the face of the earth. But I have spared you for a purpose, to show you my power and to spread my fame throughout the earth." Wow, maybe God has a purpose and a plan. And maybe God's mercy on people, there's also a displaying of God's power. Meaning God displays his power in his mercy and on his judgment. God can judge whom he wills. He can have mercy on whom he wills. This bothers us. This no doubt bothers people today. And they go, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. But yet, you as a person want autonomy. You want to do what you want to do. You want to judge who you want to judge. You want to have mercy on who you want to have. But when God has that prerogative as the creator, we rebel from it. We think, why does God have that? When we are so blinded as human beings that we ourselves do that. We ourselves are having mercy on whom we want to have mercy. And if we want to have a power trip over people, we will pull the power trip over people. We will suppress them. We will oppress them. We will murder them. We will get over on people. Economically, we will do that. God does it in his righteousness. That's the difference. God is righteous. He righteously can judge us. He righteously can have mercy on us. It's all from his righteousness. It is not from wickedness or evil. It is from righteousness. So we don't deserve God's mercy. We all deserve God's judgment. If God spares anybody, that is a merciful act. And this is the tough pill to swallow, because it is something that goes right against our pride. Do you think this not went against Pharaoh's pride? Hey, I could have struck you down. You could have been dead, bro. But instead, you've been spared. Why? So that God's power will be displayed through you. Your hardened heart is going to display God's ability to move his people despite your force. God's force will be greater. He is a greater force than you, a greater power than you, Pharaoh. And again, human beings, human with their pride and their arrogance, man, we just go, no, 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 I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. But yet the scary scientific fact is we do the same exact thing, meaning, but we do it in unrighteousness. We judge people in unrighteousness. We oppress people in unrighteousness. We suppress people in righteousness. We economically oppress people in unrighteousness. We murder people in unrighteousness for the mean green. And it's all in unrighteousness. And we all want to be autonomous. We all want to be what we call free. Free to do what we want to do. Wow. Well, this is the human dilemma. It's the human blindness that we can't seem to see that we have become something that's very dark, and we need grace and we need mercy upon us. And this is what God says. He says, I will show my power through you to spread my fame throughout all the earth. Everybody's going to know that the king of Pharaoh, the god of the Egyptians, was toppled. But you still lord it over my people and refuse to let them go. So tomorrow at this time I will send a hailstorm more devastating than any in all the history of Egypt. Quick, order your livestock and servants to come in from the fields to find shelter. Any person or animal left outside will die from the hail when the hail falls. Some of Pharaoh's officials were afraid because of what the Lord had said. They quickly brought their servants and livestock in from the fields, but those who paid no attention to the word of the Lord left theirs out in the open. Hey, am I going to obey? Am I going to listen to the words of God, or am I just going to neglect it and just say, nah, I'm not even going to deal with that. I don't care what was said through Moses or Aaron. I don't care what was said through that. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to live my life as if it doesn't matter. Is that how I'm going to go about it today? That's how many people are going to go about their lives today. It doesn't matter what Jesus said. It doesn't matter at all what he said. I'm just going to go about it. I'm going to ignore it and just do my thing. And so it says, then the Lord said to Moses, lift your hand toward the sky, so hail may fall on the people, the livestock, and all the plants throughout the land of Egypt. So Moses lifted his staff toward the sky, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning flashed toward the earth. The Lord sent a tremendous hailstorm against the land of Egypt. Never in all history of Egypt had there been a storm like that, with such devastating hail and continuous lightning. It left all of Egypt in ruins. The hail struck down everything in the open field, people, animals, and plants alike. Even the trees were destroyed. The only place without hail was the region of Goshen, where the people of Israel lived. Then Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned. Notice these judgments from God. There is a protection for the people of God. Isn't that cool? When there's a special judgment of God, you see this theme that there is a protection for the people of God. I'll name two more incidences that already happened in our reading through the Bible. Noah in the flood, and Lot and Abraham in Sodom and Gomorrah. We saw the people of God, though they be few, they were saved out of the destruction, the special judgment. This special judgment of God in Egypt, you notice the Hebrews collectively are spared. They are free from these plagues. Pretty cool, right? I wonder if that's going to be a pattern in the future. That future judgment, special judgment of God, there will be a protection for his people. Something to think about. And then it says, okay, so then it says, then Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned, he confessed. The Lord is the righteous one, and my people and I are wrong. Please beg the Lord to end this terrifying thunder and hail. We've had enough. I will let you go. You don't need to stay any longer. All right, Moses replied. I love that. Hey, it sounds like he's on the right track, man. I totally blew it. We messed up. We've done the wrong thing, man. We're done. You guys could go. He says, all right, Moses replied. As soon as I leave the city, I will lift my hand and pray to the Lord, and the thunder and hail will stop. And you will know that the earth belongs to the Lord, but I know that you and your officials still do not fear the Lord God. So Moses he discerned that Pharaoh really wasn't ready or his officials really ready to truly repent, truly come and change their mind about gods and goddesses and who the God is and things of that nature. It's amazing that in the beginning, the people knew who the true and living God was from the moment of creation. But ever since that, as population grew through being fruitful and multiplying, as people have moved and populated the world, there has been a distortion of the knowledge of the true and living God. And even though God has brought about a revelation of the true and living God, and it's in people. People had an understanding of the true and living God. They have chosen to go their own routes. Pharaoh being one of them. The land of Egypt being, in a sense, poisoned by false teaching. And here you see the response of it. The response is, no, there is a true and living God. And you guys know it, but you guys are stubborn. You just want to do what you want to do. You want to go your way. See, most of us aren't like when I grew up, I wasn't refusing to read the Bible or learn about the true and living God because of some intellectual reason. I was really refusing to listen to the Bible or wanting to hear anything from the Bible because I wanted to live the way I wanted to live. I was just doing what Pharaoh and the people did. They want to keep doing what they're doing with no consequences. I'm going to keep oppressing people. I'm going to keep doing this. I want to keep doing that. I want to keep doing this. I want to do what I want to do. I want to do everything my way. And this is what has become of the world in Pharaoh's day that we see in the book of Exodus. That even in Pharaoh's day, we see that there has been a distortion of understanding who the true and living God was. It's not that they didn't have any revelation of the true and living God. No, they had revelations of the true and living God. Pharaoh's getting a very clear one right now. But we see that even with all this amazing display of destruction from hail and thunder and rain and all that, people, the sin within us is that gnarly. The rebellion in us, the iniquity in us is out of control. It doesn't want to stop going away from the true and living God. And Moses saw that in the heart of the government of Egypt. And he says, all the flax and barley were ruined by the hail because the barley had formed heads and the flax was budding. But the wheat and the emmer wheat were spared because they had not yet sprouted from the ground. So Moses left Pharaoh's court and went out of the city, and when he lifted his hands to the Lord, the thunder and hail had stopped, and downpour ceased. But when Pharaoh saw that the rain, hail, and thunder had stopped, he and his officials sinned again. And Pharaoh again became stubborn because his heart was hard. Pharaoh refused to let the people leave, just as the Lord had predicted through Moses. Right? The interesting thing about the Bible is these things called predictions. That's the interesting thing about the biblical literature. What makes the Bible super unique is these predictions. And this is something, a prophetic word, if you will. And it's just a very unique thing about the Bible compared to other, quote, religious texts. The Bible is very, very unique in its prophetic predictions. So then the Lord said to Moses, "Return to Pharaoh and make your demands again. I have made him his officials stubborn, and I can display my miraculous signs among them. I've also done it so you can tell your children and grandchildren about how I made a mockery of the Egyptians and about the signs I displayed among them, so you will know that I am the Lord." So I'm going to do something that you have evidence. You have clear evidence that I am the Lord your God, and that you don't have to doubt. You don't have to tell your children don't have to doubt. This is why Jesus has come to the earth, by the way. Jesus came so that you don't have to doubt the existence of God. You don't have to doubt if God's real. You don't have to, any of that. It's all now moot. You shouldn't even have to argue those things. If Jesus really lived and died and rose again and ascended into heaven, then it's done. It's a done deal. We are a visited planet. God has been here, and he has given a message. And it's just, are you going to listen and are you not going to listen? You know, the power of God has been displayed. It is in Christ. It's in the gospel. It's the power of God unto salvation. The good news of Jesus Christ. It's right there. But what are you going to do? Are you going to be like Pharaoh and look at the power of God to save you? Jesus coming to save you? Are you going to look at that power of God to save you? It takes a lot of power. Are you going to refuse that? You could see God's got a reason why he displays his power the way he does. But one of them is to, show evidence. Hey, I've come to the planet. I've come in a moment in history. And it says, and God, does it so that he can be known. And I love that. Today, God wants me to know him. He's not hiding from me. He wants me to know him. He's made himself known. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to submit to me? Let my people go so they can worship me. If you refuse, watch out, for tomorrow I will bring a swarm of locusts on your country. They will cover the land so that you won't be able to see the ground. They will devour what little is left of your crops after the hailstorm, including all the trees growing in the fields. They will overturn your palaces and the homes of your officials and all the houses in Egypt. Never in the history of Egypt have your ancestors seen a plague like this one." And with that, Moses turned and left Pharaoh. Pharaoh's officials now came to Pharaoh and appealed to him. "How long will you let this man hold us hostage? Let the man go to worship the Lord their God. Don't you realize that the Egypt lies in ruins?" So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. "All right," he told them, "go and worship the Lord your God. But who exactly will be going with you?" Moses replied, "We will all go, young and old, sons and daughters, with our flocks and herds. We must all join together in celebrating the festival of the Lord." Pharaoh retorted, "The Lord will certainly need to be with you, and if I let you take your little ones, I can see through your evil plan. Never." And it says, "Only the men may go and worship the Lord, since this is what you requested." And Pharaoh threw them out of the palace. It's interesting how Pharaoh's wanting things his way, man. It reminds me of me. Do I want things my way? When instead of just bowing the knee, instead of walking humbly, do I find myself always with some kind of thing, I'll let you go, but you got to do this and this and this and this. I'll like you, but you need to do blah, 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 blah. Pharaoh just can't let go of control. Do you see that? Can I let go of control? Can I let go of my reputation and the insecurities that are ruling Pharaoh's heart? Insecure. What if people see me as weak? What if people see me as not strong? What if people see me as not the ruler, not the strong, judging ruler? Do you think not government officials today, presidents of places, struggle with this kind of insecurity, where they have to show themselves strong all the time, where they always have to come off very arrogant and boastful and proud and mighty and intellectual and knowing what they're doing? Or, do you see that it's all the same thing? And we're all plagued with it. We can't even point the finger at them that they're in the wrong because we're in the wrong. We're also arrogant, and we also are insecure, and we also do things out of insecurities instead of just bowing the knee to God. We just will not bow. We will do anything. I'll create a God in my own mind, and I'll call myself a spiritual person because I'll just create something in my brain. I'll do anything but bow the knee to the true and living God. I will worship other gods. I will be a part of some interesting cult. I will get really involved in this church thing or this thing or whatever it is, and it makes me feel like I belong. It makes me feel this. Anything but really bowing the knee to the true and living God, really dealing with my heart. Man, we are like Pharaoh on this planet. Then the Lord said to Moses after they get kicked out of the palace, raise your hand over the land of Egypt to bring on the locusts. Let them cover the land and devour the plants that survived a hailstorm. So Moses raised his staff over Egypt, and the Lord caused the east wind to blow over the land all that day and through the night. And when morning arrived, east wind had brought the locust, and the locust swarmed over the whole land of Egypt, setting in dense swarms from one end of the country to the other. It was the worst locust plague in Egypt history, and there has never been one like that ever since. For the locusts covered the whole country and darkened the land. They devoured every plant in the field and all the fruit on the trees that had survived the hailstorm. Not a single leaf was left on the trees and plants throughout the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. He confessed. Sounds familiar. Forgive my sin just this once and plead with the Lord your God to take away this death from me. So Moses left Pharaoh's court and pleaded with the Lord. The Lord responded by shifting the wind, and the strong west wind blew the locust into the Red Sea. Not a single locust remained in the land of Egypt, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart again, so he refused to let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses, lift your hand toward heaven, and the land of Egypt will be covered with darkness so thick you can feel it. So Moses lifted his hand to the sky, and deep darkness covered the entire land of Egypt for 3 days. During all that time, the people could not see each other, so no one moved, but there was light as usual where the people of Israel lived. Finally, Pharaoh called for Moses and said, go worship the Lord your God, but leave your flocks and herds here. You may even take your little ones with you. No, Moses said, you must provide us animals for sacrifices and burnt offerings to the Lord our God. All of our livestock must go with us too. Not a hoof can be left behind. We must choose our sacrifice for the Lord our God from among these animals, and we won't know how we are to worship the Lord until we get there. Notice, we're going to trust God, we're going to bring everything, but we don't know exactly what God's going to tell us until we get there. Sometimes in trusting God, I don't know what God's going to do until I get there. I'm going to need to trust God. I'm going to have to just go, and see what God's going to do, but I'm not quite sure what he's going to do. And I love how Moses says that. We're not sure exactly how we're supposed to do the sacrifices. We just know we need to bring everything. God's given us a little bit, but not everything. I need to trust him. And it says, and it's not without evidence. There's plenty of evidence that's being displayed for Moses to know, okay, God's the real deal. I just need to trust him. God has displayed himself on this planet. There's no doubting God. It's just, will you trust him? Will you move forward? Get out of here, Pharaoh replied. Go. But it says Pharaoh hardened his heart once more, and he would not let them go. And he says, get out of here, Pharaoh shouted at Moses. I'm warning you, never come back to see me again. The day you see my face, you will die. Very well, Moses replied, I will never see your face again. Okay, so Pharaoh says, hey, you know what? You come here, you're going to die. Well, guess what? We find out, Moses ain't going to die later on. It's going to be Pharaoh. But, Moses is blind. He's blinded. This is the condition of humanity. We are deaf, dumb, blind, mute. We are lost. And we need to be resurrected. We need our eyes to be opened. The revelation of God has already happened on the planet in a major way through God coming to the planet. But it says humans are darkened. It says this is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but humans have loved darkness. We have, like Pharaoh, we've loved to go our way. We refuse. We are arrogant, stubborn, stiff-necked. We just will not go the way of God. We need mercy upon mercy upon mercy. And, it's just, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Who are you going to be like? Are you going to be like Moses, who's the reluctant guy, but he's the guy who's going to step out in faith. He's going to trust God. Or are you going to be like Pharaoh and just go, nope, I'm going to keep doing stuff my way. The way I think, I'm going to serve my gods. I'm going to serve my things. And even though they're not real, it's not the true and living God. It's something you're making up in your brain. And, this isn't good. And obviously it's created a lot of havoc in the world, our idolatry. And it's just led to an incredible amount of hate towards one another. So, man, what a two passages. Makes me think, what is Beau going to be like today? Who is Beau going to be like today? Am I going to be like the Pharaoh? Or am I going to learn in my heart to be able to say, God, you are right, and I am going to surrender to you. I give you my life. I give you my heart. I give you those resentments and those insecurities, and I need you to change my life. And coming in a humble way, that I'm not a great guy. I am a guy with feet made of clay, so frail, so fragile. And, it says, humble thyself in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. So cool. Okay, you guys, have a great day. And thanks for joining me. Mike, thanks so much, brother. Paula, you guys have a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.